Upset of the year for the ATP side. Who do you guys go for? Gil, do you want to go first?
Sure. Yeah, this is a slam dunk. I expect that everybody has Botic van de Zandschulp over Carlos Alcaraz, third round US Open. If you look at the top contenders, if you look at like Sinner's year, Zverev's year, Medvedev's year, nobody took an upset loss. So this is the only time where we got that first week of a slam, men's side title contender loses. And he loses in straight sets fairly quickly. He had won the last two majors coming in. Yeah, he took the early loss in Canada to Monfils, the first round loss to Canada and Monfils. Didn't look all that great in his first two rounds, but you just got this Alcaraz best of five, gonna figure it out. Like that was sort of the feeling. I think even down 2-0, it's like, okay, he's still probably gonna figure this out. And it just never gets there for him. Botic has that like stoic, zero emotion kind of vibe. It's not like he doesn't ever get tight, but he didn't in this match. He kept going after it. He's coming forward, hitting the forehand really, really big, attacking short balls. And he, after bringing up retirement, after losing at Roland Garros, he had not been having a good year. He beats Carlos Alcaraz at the US Open.
Yeah, I mean, it was a really, really surprising result. But one thing that I wanted to point out actually is that it almost was reminiscent of, I know Alcaraz, and there's lots of comparisons always made between himself and Rafa stylistically, but I want to talk more about how he lost. And I feel like there's been moments in Rafa's career where it hasn't happened very often, and I'm sure it won't happen for Alcaraz, where he comes up against someone who's playing inspired tennis, who's generally a big hitter, and he ends up losing in straights in a really random moment. I feel like that's what happened with Alcaraz, and I feel like if someone does come out and play and redline, and they're able to have the arsenal that someone like Van de Zandschulp does have and is able to utilize when he's playing his best, then it can spell trouble. And I do think, and Cam, you mentioned this earlier, that with the Olympic final loss, I do think it definitely had a big effect as well for the rest of his year. I know he said it didn't, but I mean, look, I've got a selfie with Alcaraz at Wimbledon, gave him a big hug, didn't really, but just a small little, reach around. But look, he's a fantastic player and person, and he seems to be really down to earth. But surely it has had some effect, because if you look at the Cincinnati loss to Djokovic last year in the final, and he lost him in that really heartbreaking loss, he was crying on court after. It took him until Indian Wells this year to finally start playing well again. Like, he had a massive dip up until then. And it hasn't been as bad, in fairness, since that Olympic loss, but there's still been a dip. And I think it'll come with maturity, no doubt. But he's only human. He's still won 2 slams this year. So, and again, lost 1,000 tournaments. So, no, I mean, it's not been a bad year. It's been a phenomenal year. But I think he's just prone to that a little bit. So, in hindsight, it's a beautiful thing. And it's still definitely, the biggest upset. But I think when you look at the factors, maybe you think, oh, maybe it could have happened. Like, it actually makes sense from my perspective anyway. Anthony, Cam, I'm assuming you guys put the same thing?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I didn't think there was any other choice. I mean, 3 sets, 6-1 opening set. Van de Zandschulp playing so aggressive and on top of the net and charging forward. Alcaraz doesn't like that style of play to contend with, pushing Carlos back. And he just kept to the same game plan the whole time through. I think Alcaraz it's hard to play against a guy like Carlos and just be confident in your game plan and just stick to it, especially against Carlos specifically, because Alcaraz has so many shots and will hit a crazy shot. But Botic just, Gil, like you said, I mean, it's hard to tell what really is just the guy's personality and what, you can actually discern is kind of what goes into his mentality as a tennis player. But he just seems to just not care no matter what the situation is. And he was really calm under all the pressure. And yeah, I mean, it reminds you of a Lucas Rosol beating Rafa or of a Stakhovsky being Federer. Alcaraz losing in straight set, and the fact that he won the last 2 majors just makes it completely undeniable. At the U.S. Open, a tournament that he's actually won before, and people will say things like Alcaraz is a hard court player, that Alcaraz is a bad hard court player or something, or well, certainly not, but not as good on hard courts as he is on other surfaces. I don't even necessarily think that's the case personally. I think it's yet to be known for sure, but the truth is Van de Zandschulp played a great match, and Alcaraz, whatever there are probably many factors at play. One might be the heartbreak to Novak. I just thought it was completely undeniable. And shout out to Botic, because like I think Gil, you pointed this out, but he was talking about retirement, I think at the start of the year or something. That was in the cards or in the conversation. So yeah, good to see for Botic. I couldn't handle seeing Botic mess up those 4 match points against Rune and Munich last year. So I was happy something good happened for the guy, to be honest. So that's what I'd say.
And then he also beat Rafa in his last match as well, just to add insult to injury for Spain, for all the Spanish fans out there.
Yeah,
odd year for Botic.
Yeah,
odd year.
Very strange. Yeah,
very strange. Yeah, Cam, the same one for you?
Yeah, I agree. I'll just give 3 honorable mentions, I think, and they're all Djokovic, which is weird because I keep talking about Djokovic, it seems, every time. But Nardi beating Djokovic at Indian Wells, that was on my short list. Sinner beating Djokovic at the Australian Open, never happened in the semis. Maybe at the first half of the year, you could have thought about that one as well, I guess. And yeah, but like Gil said, like there was no massive. I mean, Popyrin beating Djokovic 24 hours later, that was, at the US Open was pretty wild. But we saw that Poppy had done well against Djokovic this year anyway. But yeah, I mean, Van de Zandschulp defeating Alcaraz, I think we'll remember that one for a while, especially, if Alcaraz doesn't lose in the first week of a slam for a while, like you said with Rafa, there are those matches we all remember in the first weeks of Wimbledon or the first weeks of whatever. It's might be one of those ones for him when he retires. We'll go, I remember that Van de Zandschulp's, early rounds US Open loss. That was weird. I think that it'll be remembered probably for the longest time.
First time Alcaraz has been upset at a major also, because so people like to put that label on him as like, oh, it can lose to anybody at any moment. And it's kind of true a little bit in a way, but not at majors until he lost to Botic. But yeah, last year, I think he probably won this award for losing to Fabian Marozsan, which in some ways, bigger upset.
Yeah, no, that was, and Marozsan, I mean, a lot of people wouldn't have even heard of him before that match, and that's no disrespect to him, but I think
it was kind of a different thing.
Yeah, he came out of nowhere almost. It was crazy. So this was, I mean, everyone's heard of Van de Zandschulp. You'd hope, but you'd hope, but yeah. So, but yes, still a pretty shocking loss. But it's just such an interesting one to see how it does pan out going forward. Whether, as you say, Cam, he just doesn't have any more of these types of losses. And I guess the reason why people think he could potentially lose to anyone is because he can fluctuate so much in level at times. And Sinner is like a solid 8 or 9 most matches. I think he said it himself, Alcaraz, about Sinner. But with Alcaraz, you feel like he could maybe hit a 10 when that's possible, but he can also drop down to like a 5 and is anywhere in between at times. And he can have a bad forehand day, which sounds crazy to say. He's got such an incredible forehand, but that can happen for him as well at times. And that's not something you'd ever even say about Sinner or even think about, I think, comprehend even happening. But as I said, he's still so young, so I'm sure he'll figure out. And the fact that we're saying this and he's won 2 slams, I mean, just says volumes about his talent, to be honest.
100%. Yeah, I think he's got like an 80% win rate on the season, so he's not doing too badly. But I guess that comes, you'd assume that when talking about Alcaraz because he's so good. But yeah, definitely the inconsistency compared to Sinner, but he's still very, very good for a 21-year-old.
Yeah, exactly.